Welcome to BioNerds and Engineers, where biology meets engineering, exploring the journeys of scientists, engineers, CEOs, and innovators through expert conversations and deep dives into groundbreaking research. Subscribe now to stay ahead in the world of innovation, technology, and leadership.
I am Om, your resident engineer, always obsessing over systems and workflows.
And I'm Urvi, the BioNerd. Today, we are bringing you a complete explainer on something literally every single student and academic faces. But honestly, very few are actually taught how to do efficiently, and that is writing a research paper. We are going to break down the exact workflows, the right structures, and crucially, how to use modern AI tools without accidentally committing academic misconduct. So let's jump right in. We have a very clear roadmap today to take you all the way from the panic of a blank page to a successfully published paper. We're going to cover the research lifecycle, using AI for literature discovery, mastering the IMRaD format, drafting with AI assistance, beating citation hallucinations, and finally, polish and publication prep.
Yeah, and whether you are just trying to survive a college assignment or you're deep into a PhD thesis, this workflow is going to save you hundreds of hours.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the research lifecycle. You know, from an engineering standpoint, writing a paper is just building a complex system. You cannot put the roof on before you've poured the foundation. But how do students even begin tackling this massive task? It really all starts with 5 sequential steps. First up is topic selection. You have to identify an actual gap in the knowledge and formulate a precise, researchable question. If you go too broad here, you are absolutely going to drown in data.
Right. And then comes step 2, the preliminary search. This is where you're skimming databases just to figure out what existing scholarship is actually out there.
Exactly. Then you move to step 3, the outline, where you build a logical skeleton for your argument. Step 4 is drafting, and step 5 is revision and submission. You have to stick to this linear progression. It prevents the classic beginner mistake of just writing pages and pages before you actually know what it is you're trying to argue. That preliminary search phase brings us nicely to Section 2, AI for literature discovery. So, Urvi, the landscape of research has just completely transformed. We don't have to spend weeks manually digging through dusty library archives anymore. But there's a lot of noise out there. What AI tools actually save the most time when you're just starting to search?
Well, the absolute most critical rule here is using the right tool for the right job. If you use a general chatbot for deep academic research, that is a recipe for disaster. But for literature review and data extraction, a tool called Elicit is an absolute game changer. It's basically an AI research assistant that reads the papers for you and pulls out things like sample sizes, methods, and outcomes, putting them all into custom tables.
Wow. Okay, so that is absolutely perfect for systematic reviews. And then for quick evidence synthesis, I know consensus is incredibly useful. Let's say you have a binary yes or no question, like, does zinc actually reduce the duration of a cold? Consensus searches the scientific literature and gives you this really cool visual meter showing if the evidence supports, opposes, or is just mixed on the topic.
It's so handy. And finally, for just general paper discovery, you've got to check out Semantic Scholar. It's totally free, it indexes over 200 million papers, and it generates these one-sentence AI summaries called TLDRs. Plus, it gives you really comprehensive citation graphs so you can see how papers connect.
Okay, so once you've gathered your literature, it is time for Section 3, mastering the IMRD format. The big question is, how do researchers actually take all that messy data and structure it into a paper that a journal will actually accept? You use the IMRAD structure. This is literally the universal backbone of scientific writing. Almost every journal across basically every discipline requires it. And it's not just some arbitrary formatting rule somebody made up. It is a direct reflection of the scientific method itself. It stands for Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion. See, that makes so much sense to me. It forces you to be systematic. You can't just write a creative narrative story. You have to present your data logically so that other engineers or scientists can actually replicate your work. Exactly. Let's break down the specific purpose of each section. The introduction answers the question, what problem did you investigate and why? You want to use a funnel structure here. So start with broad background knowledge and slowly narrow it down to your very specific research gap and hypothesis.
Got it. Then the methods section answers, how exactly did you conduct the research? And like we said, this needs to be detailed enough for full replication.
The results section is basically just the facts. What did you observe? This is where you use your tables and graphs, but importantly, no interpretation yet, right?
Spot on. You save all of your interpretation for that final section, the discussion. This is where you step back and answer, what do your findings actually mean, and how do they connect back to that problem you introduced at the very beginning of the paper?
So looking at this workflow, I have a very practical question, and I think it's one a lot of beginners really struggle with. Once I have my outline built, should I just write the paper in order, from start to finish? Like, do I write the introduction first and then just move down the list? That is a fantastic question, and the answer is a massive, resounding no. The pros use this incredible productivity hack. You should actually draft your paper out of order in this specific sequence. You want to start with your methods and results. Write these first while all the data and the procedures are completely fresh in your mind.
Okay, that is incredibly efficient. Why on earth would you try to write an introduction framing your findings when you haven't even fully documented those findings yet?
Exactly. It saves so much rewriting later. Once your results are locked in, then you write the discussion to interpret them. Only after all of that is completely done should you go back and write the introduction to frame the research, and save the abstract, which is just the summary of the entire paper, for the very, very end. Which brings us to Section 4, Drafting with AI Assistance. Now, this is where things can get a little controversial, but there are purpose-built academic AI tools designed specifically for drafting. We have Jenny AI on one side for fast drafting and PaperPal on the other. Right, and they absolutely can speed up your writing process, but only as long as they are used to assist, not replace your critical thinking. Jenny AI is fantastic when you're starting from scratch. It has this AI autocomplete feature that writes alongside you and actually helps you search for relevant citations as you're going. It's a lifesaver when you're staring at a blank page. And then on the flip side, PaperPal is less about generating text from nothing and more about acting like a highly trained professional academic editor. It polishes your grammar, ensures you have the right academic tone, and basically gets your manuscript journal ready. A lot of researchers use a workflow combining both, Jenny to build out the first rough draft and then PaperPal to refine it, especially since PaperPal is trained specifically on millions of peer-reviewed papers. But before we ride this productivity hype train too far, we have to look at Section 5, Beating Citation Hallucinations. Because the reality of using AI in research is honestly terrifying if you aren't careful. Standard general-purpose AI models like ChatGPT 3.5 can hallucinate or just completely fabricate up to 55% of their citations when you ask them to write literature reviews.
55%? That is wild. You literally cannot just ask a chatbot to write a paper and expect the sources to be real. You're basically playing Russian roulette with your academic career.
Exactly. An AI citation hallucination happens when the AI generates references to papers that simply do not exist anywhere. Or maybe it puts the wrong authors on a real paper. Or it cites a real paper that doesn't actually contain the facts the AI claims it does. You have to remember, large language models are predictive text engines. They are just trying to sound plausible. They aren't necessarily trying to be factual.
So, if I'm a student or a researcher, how do I protect my reputation from these fake citations? What is the actual workflow to verify all this stuff?
You need an ultimate verification workflow using two essential tools. First up is Scite. This is a citation context checker. It doesn't just tell you that a paper was cited, it tells you exactly how it was cited. Did subsequent papers actually support the finding? Did they contradict it? Or did they just casually mention it?
That is incredibly powerful. You definitely don't want to build your whole thesis on a paper that got completely disproven a year later. And what about AI Citation Checker?
AI Citation Checker is designed specifically to hunt for hallucinations. It cross-checks databases to detect fabricated DOIs, mismatched metadata, and completely fake authors. It basically ensures that the references your AI assistant suggested actually exist in the real world. Which brings us to the absolute golden rule of academic integrity. AI should assist your writing, not replace your thinking. Blindly copying AI-generated text without doing manual verification is the absolute fastest way to get desk rejected by a journal, or much worse, find yourself facing an academic integrity board. You have to be the pilot. The AI is strictly the co-pilot.
Perfectly said. At the end of the day, you own the final output. The science has to be yours.
All right, let's steer this explainer toward the finish line with Section 6, Polish and Publication Prep. Surviving peer review really comes down to meticulous preparation. First, always run scope and readiness checks before you submit. The most common mistake researchers make is polishing the language on a paper that's going to be rejected for scientific reasons anyway. You have to fix the science, the positioning, and the figures before you ever invest time in language polish.
That's a really great point, and you absolutely must check previously published papers in your target journal. Every journal has its own specific style and expectation, so you need to tailor your manuscript to match them perfectly.
Yes, and definitely use professional editors or your peers for proofreading. Finally, the most important tip of all, do not take peer review criticism personally. Constructive criticism is literally designed to make your work bulletproof. You just have to learn to accept it gracefully. So true. The reviewers are just trying to help, usually. So, to summarize today's workflow, respect the research lifecycle, pick the right AI tools for your discovery phase, rely on that IMRaD format, draft smart but verify rigorously to avoid those hallucinations, and polish strategically.
Writing a research paper is, at the end of the day, just a process. Take it one step at a time, use these workflows, and I promise you, you will get there. Don't let the blank page overwhelm you.
Exactly right. But it does make you wonder, as these tools keep evolving, in 5 years, will AI just be assisting our research, or will it be designing the experiments for us?
If you enjoyed this, subscribe to BioNerds and Engineers, and tell us in the comments what topic we should cover next. Keep innovating, and we'll catch you in the next one.